We are back and welcome back from that short commercial break. It's exactly 2 minutes. That's past the hour of 8 a.m. And this time around, we're heading straight. It's the Coffee Court Hour, as of course, where we digest matters of national importance in regards to economic growth and development. And today, the topic of discussion will be relying on food scarcity in the country. What is the way forward? Coffee Court has more.
It is a pleasure and thank you for joining us on the Coffee Court, where we daily discuss matters of national importance. My name is Fred Makubia, and this time around we digest matters of scarcity of food in this country. What needs to be done, and anyway, what is the root cause of this? Of course, putting into context COP27, which in one of the discussions that they are addressing is the issue of global warming. And to address this, I'm joined by Madame Agnes Chirabo. She is the Executive Director of Uganda Foods Alliance. It's a pleasure, Madam. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you. Good morning, and it's a pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
You are so vocal on issues regarding food in this country. Why?
I'm not just vocal, I'm concerned. Because in any case, if there is a human being that is not concerned about how he or she is going to feed, or how you're going to feed your people, then you're not worth living.
It is the basic. So it's not, you're not just vocal, but you are a concerned citizen. Let's begin with the escalating prices of food in this country. What could be the contributing factors?
It's quite a number of factors, but the primary factor is the neglected factor. It's that over the years we have neglected the governance of our food system, and nobody wants to talk about that. Everybody, when we experience a food scarcity, wants to condemn the climate, we find all other reasons as to why we are hungry, as to why the food prices have gone up, whether it is fuel or what. I'm here to inform the viewers that the actual reason why we are living in this world, it is an issue of governance, it is an issue of inequality.
What do you mean by governance being a major issue?
Food is no longer a social product, something, an item you throw in the mouth. It is not just that. It's a political tool, it's a governance tool, it's an economic tool. You see? So if food is having all those faces, we cannot let it be by the rules of nature, and we do not have a system, we do not have a structure, we do not have the legal, we do not have the policy. We cannot actually tell the Ugandans well in time as to how we are planning how they will be feeding themselves or how they will eat the next financial year. Let me ask you, you have over the years been listening or watching the president in the State of the Nation address. Has he ever commented on how his people fed and how he wants them to feed the next financial year? Because he's imagining food will happen. And it cannot happen.
The president has, but even if he hasn't, his government, through the different ministries, have talked about the issues of food. I can give you an example. Every month, UBOS gives us a report about inflation. And one of the contributing factors for this is the food that you and I consume. So even if the president doesn't talk about it.
And then what do you do?
The Bureau of Statistics has mentioned it's literally a position for that.
No, it doesn't. The Bureau of Statistics, see, its role is to give us data. And data in itself doesn't translate into food. For them, they're supposed to give us data and we make administrative and governance decisions. And this is what I'm asking you. That all the time that UBOS has told us that our inflation is driven by the food inflation, then what have we done? Because the Ugandans are interested in what we have done that translates into bringing the prices down, that translates into food, that translates into their capability or ability to feed themselves. So you cannot tell them that there is data. So what? Should they eat data?
I brought that example to show you that government is concerned.
No, they are not concerned. They aren't concerned. We need to see much more than that. I have asked people, why is it that we have institutions on things that will extinct and we do not have institutions on what matters to humanity? We have an oil institution, but you know that oil is an exhausting resource. But do you know which institution is responsible for you and me to eat in Uganda?
All ministries are responsible.
Something that belongs to everybody belongs to nobody. And so nothing is done.
I'm literally saying that every ministry is responsible.
And I'm telling you something that is responsible to everybody, nobody is responsible. And in any case, if all the ministries were responsible, then you come to me to ask me about food prices? Am I the one to answer that question?
Because government has given you position to address such matters.
No, let me tell you, the role of
this to the right person.
Mr. Makubuya, the role of civil society is to complement what government has done. We are not supposed to lead and the government follows us. It is government to lead and then we follow. I was on this set. I was talking about the role strategic food reserves play in an economy. And you could wonder why, of all things, we decided to privatize our strategic food reserves. They are not called food reserves. They are called strategic food reserves. It's an economic tool. And that is how we respond to food inflation. We don't talk about it. We take action. The food reserves are not meant to feed the hungry alone, although partly it is supposed to do that. The food reserves also play a role by releasing some of that food on the market, and it brings the food prices down. And then we manage the economics.
You seem to be pessimistic about the issues we are discussing.
No, I'm a realist. I'm a realist, I'm not a theorist.
If you're a realist, you wouldn't say government has not done anything.
I'm telling you.
Addressing these issues.
I'm telling you. I have just given you an example. This is how they deal with the food inflation. They don't talk about it. That's the role. It's a need for yesterday that government repossesses our strategic food reserves. Can you imagine the amount of money? Even government becomes our competitor. Because when they want to take food to Mobende and Kasanda, they come to the market where me and you purchase food. And they are also the reason why these food prices are going up.
I've not seen government in Kalere. I've not seen government in Nakasero. I've not seen government in where I buy food.
You need to know that when a big buyer, by the way, when I was growing up, people never wanted to sell to government for two reasons. Because government was offering lower prices than the market price.
That was then.
But that was then. But now we are living in an era where government, the big buyer, is offering exorbitant prices. And this is what the traders do. Food moves and exchanges hands. The food that you're seeing in Kalere did not start from Kalere. So when the traders hear that the big buyer and the high price offering buyer is going to buy, one, they hold on stock. Some of these castes we are living with in this country, you know, what is the word? People hold on stock. They speculate. They are speculative sometimes. So people know that government is going to drop billions to take food to Karamoja or to take food to Kasanda and Mbende. Then they hold on stock and create a scarcity. So your government becomes your competitor on the food market.
The evidence I have is that that happens to a few business tycoons in Kampala, where you go and you want to purchase a number of things, and you can't access.
You do not know the role they play in the grain trade. You don't know the role they play in regimu trade. Because you have already accepted that they are huge grain traders. I have told you, those beans you're seeing in Kalero, in Kasubi, in Natete, in whatever market, they exchange hands. They exchange hands. So if the other ones are going to hold on stock, so what does it mean? They are creating a scarcity. And that scarcity, you will feed it whether you want it in a smaller village or what. So that's why I'm telling you that when government had its own strategic reserves, we wouldn't be having those shocks. And in any case, if we were to have those shocks, they wouldn't be so bumpy as they are.
Maybe before we finalize the issue of reserves, you have a position, and actually an authoritative position, to address some of these matters. If you were in charge of government, how do you handle the issues of inflation that emanate as a result of the food chain production?
I have told you, first and foremost, I would not imagine that food in this country will happen. I would plan for it. I would budget for it. I would project. At least on the few food items that for instance, the matoke prices have gone up, and the poor know that they can eat maize at an affordable price. That alone will push the matoke prices down. But now there is no opportunity, there is no other alternative. So I would stop imagining. I would streamline the policy, the legal and the institutional framework. I would have appreciated what food scarcity can do, not only to my economics, but also to the stability of my government. And I sort that out. A hungry person is an angry one. You can't govern, you can't rule over hungry people. They are reckless.
That is very true, and I think government has done that, except on the current situation where the reasons why we are where we are, some are external reasons, and that's why government has come up on many occasions to tell us to increase production so that we can find the inflation and the scarcity.
The problem of Uganda is not production. If you only know the post-harvest handling losses we have in this country, if only a farmer produces 10 kilograms of maize and raises 4. So is that farmer's problem production? It isn't. And I'm also here with authority to tell you that in this country today, there is enough food to feed everyone, and even have a surplus to feed. The food is available.
Where?
Let me just tell you, do you know that in some parts of this country among the pastoralists, it's cheaper to take milk than drinking water?
In some places.
Yes, among the pastoral communities, milk is cheaper than water.
In some places.
So, is that farmer's problem production? You want him or her to invest more money and make losses? Do you know that managing harvest is the biggest burden of farmers in this country?
That is
a lot of produce that we have produced goes to waste. Let me tell you,
because they are not well sensitized.
a farmer in Uganda, whether literate like me or illiterate or whatever, goes into production without actually knowing when, how, and at how much he or she will. Let us stop thinking that farmers are, let me avoid the word. Farmers are investors, and they make conscious investment decisions. You produce 10 liters of milk, you lose 7. And you're asking me I should produce 100?
But government has,
even when I don't have my senses, I will not.
Government has enacted laws. It has put up institutions.
For instance?
Government institutions, talk about NADS, that's one of it. Look at the Minister of Agriculture and Modern Industry, whose role is to do the sensitization we are talking about.
That is another problem, people thinking that agriculture is food. Agriculture can be anything that is not food.
It goes beyond food.
And that is why we have the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. Were they so stupid to have both valuables in their name? They don't. It's because each stands significantly even when they interact.
That's why also the government was wise to put all these ministries together. Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry, and Fisheries.
I have told you that agriculture is not food. It can be anything else, even when it can be food. That we plan for food. Let me tell you. Just look at Kenya here. It's evident. Every 2 years, countries under the African Union submit a report on how they are performing on the Malabo commitments under CAADP. Can you imagine Kenya was the only country in the East African region that was found on track to end hunger? Uganda were off track. Why? Because they manage their food system. There is some element of the food system they are controlling. Kenya projects how much corn they will need to feed the Kenyans in financial year. And even do those projections and calculations of if we look at the maize that has been produced in Kenya and then what we are going to import in Uganda, I think we have a deficit and we need to go to country X and import to feed the Kenyans. This is where the difference is. So who knows how much food we need in this country to feed Ugandans, to start with.
If you are in charge of Karamoja, maybe as a minister in charge of Karamoja,
Yes.
what would you do to handle the issues of food scarcity?
Do you know that the country soil fertility map for Uganda indicates that Karamoja today has the most fertile soils in this country?
I am aware.
Are you aware that Karamoja and the people of Karamoja are pastoral communities, they are livestock-based communities?
I am aware.
If you're a believer like me in what I believe in, you know that biblically, livestock keepers are blessed.
Like everybody.
So how did they become? No, you know the story of Cain and Abel. So how did they become food insecure when actually we know that that is our livestock economy?
That's what I'm asking.
Do you know that
where's the
do you know that Karamoja has the best honey in Uganda?
I am aware.
So what are we doing to harness all of those opportunities?
That is why
The
you.
problem I cannot do is thinking of going to Karamoja and transform their food system according to my cultural values of where I'm coming from. I'm supposed to invest in Karamoja and mobilize investments in Karamoja based on their comparative and competitive advantage. Produce beef, not even dairy.
You seem to be running out of my question.
I'm not.
Madam Chirabo,
No.
what would you do?
I have told you, I will capitalize on their comparative and competitive advantage and make Karamoja my livestock economy for beef. And the economy sorts it out. Because if we strategically position Karamoja as our livestock economy, all of us will go to Karamoja with our matoke, with our pumpkins, because they would have sold the livestock and got the food that they want, and not necessarily translating a livestock geographical location into potato production. Things don't work like that. We are not here forever. We are not here forever.
And we are waiting.
We have a very short time to live, and we need to do small actions with the small resources in those smaller places and get big impact.
So
Period.
Where does your government need to improve on issues of food? You earlier on hinted that government itself is involved in the purchase. Yes.
Government has to bring back the power of feeding the people of Uganda in their control. It is their duty, it is their obligation under human rights law. They took that obligation, and particularly this particular ruling government. The first international instrument they signed was the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights in 1987, when they have just come into power, where the right to adequate food is enshrined. They have a duty, they have an obligation. It is in their selfish interest to know how every person in this country is going to eat, and creating an enabling environment that me and you and the viewer out there feed themselves. They are not going to run away from this duty. The costs are too high to the government itself by failure to take that action. We need our strategic food reserves back into your control, Mr. Government. And those food reserves play a very critical role because, one, the farmers know that a particular consignment is going to into government. The hungry, you will feed the hungry cheaper than the money you're spending. That's why we know hunger is not an emergency. Hunger has never been an emergency. But every time hunger strikes in this country, government is panicking. They are looking for supplementary budgets.
Depends where you put it from. So in some areas, it is an emergency.
It isn't.
In some areas.
Which areas? We all know that when it rains, River Nyamwamba will burst its banks. It will flood. We all know that we are going to get mudslides in the Elgon. We know, and it happens annually. In a particular period in time, it sees as being an emergency.
But why throw this to government, the things you're talking about?
Because they have a duty and an obligation, and they took an oath. I did not.
But growth and development is a collective responsibility.
And the government is supposed to create an enabling environment.
For us to be rational all the time by throwing what we can do to government.
What have you not
Let me
done?
play my role as
What have you not done? What have
Play your role.
No, what has the farmers not done? What have we not done?
You talked about
The farmers have done their best. They go to purchase inputs that are fake. They plow, they sow their seeds, they do not germinate. They go and buy herbicides. They spray to ticks, the ticks smile at them. So what have we not done? And these are the things that we are talking about, an enabling environment. The farmers want to go buy a seed in its own right, sow it, and the seed yields. By the way, let me tell you, Ugandans are not interested in being fed. That is against their dignity. No human being, no gentleman here, no man in his own mindset needs another man to come into his household and feed his household. No. Feeding yourself is an aspect of dignity. But what we are asking, the government should create an enabling environment. That's why I'm telling you that under such circumstances, government only releases food on the market, not give me food. Release some food on the market, bring the prices down. I go and purchase my food, and I remain a man or a woman enough in my household.
that's your desire and that's your ambition. Let's, as we plan to
It's
say.
a reality. It's a reality. As we end this segment, fellow Ugandans, let us bring back food in its original position in our households, but also in our small elements of governance. We are told how our cultural leaders in Buganda, for instance, there was Olusuku lwa Kabaka, because that was the territorial government. In your position of leadership, which place or position does food occupy? Because of its centrality, there is nothing. The hungry do not invest, the hungry do not innovate, the hungry do not think, the hungry are very difficult people to manage, the hungry become criminals, the hungry do all sorts of things. So if we want to sort out our socio-economic and political challenges we are living in today, let us sort out the food question. And when we are going to sort out the food question, it is not about the food as you see it on the plate. No, it goes beyond that. It is a whole system. We need to address the systemic challenges and enable everybody to feed him or herself.
I must let you know next time we have such a discussion, I'll find out whether it's about position or function, especially when we are dealing such critical matters. Of course, that will be our next question. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Coffee Court. Matters of food is one of those fundamental things that gives us an opportunity to talk about. I am also aware it's one of the things that if we are talking about Vision 2040, it's one of the things that government looks up to. This is the Coffee Court. My name is Fred Makubi.
Right, that's a very interesting insight regarding, of course, food scarcity, trying to find a way forward regarding the current scarcity of food into the country. It's exactly 26 minutes past the hour of 8 a.m. and at this particular time, we're going to get into a short commercial break. And coming up, it's the topical discussion. And of course, we are looking at the border industry. Quite a lot has been going on, since this year began. Quite lots of initiatives trying to control the border, regulate the border. So many aspects, so many related policies have been put into this particular industry. And of course, today we have an official, and of course, regarding from one of the famous, of course, border companies, and we shall be discussing how far they have gone regarding these particular policies, how best they are affecting them. That and more coming up after the break. Good morning.